Hey everyone, it's Todd the Cybertruck truck guy, and today I want to talk about why Nikola isn't a scam, but my last video I did, which was on the construction comparison between the Giga Texas plant and the Nikola plant, outlined some obvious differences between the level of urgency that Tesla is building its plant with relative to Nikola. And it appears as if they may have failed to get their building permits, even though they actually had purchased the land more than a year ago, which is extremely weird, but also understandable. Not because Nikola's not done this before. They're bound to make some mistakes, and doing something as obvious as not getting your building permits doesn't seem that strange to me if you're somebody that's not used to building buildings. It's just one of those mistakes that you make or gets overlooked because you've never done this before. My intent of that wasn't to say that Nikola is a scam, even though a lot of people who commented on the video said Nikola is obviously a scam. I don't think Nikola is a scam, but I do think there are some super problematic things about the messages that it's saying in public and what we're actually seeing play out in the real world. And to me, today's announcement of their partnership with GM is a perfect illustration to talk about that. But I want to start out with this. This is an announcement that Nikola made in November, that they had unlocked this super secret magical battery technology. They're claiming that the trucks could weigh 5,000 pounds less. Their battery only trucks could now drive 800 miles, 40% reduction in weight, a 50% material cost reduction, a energy density up to 500 watt hours per kilogram at the pack level. This is a shocking technological breakthrough if it exists, and if it exists in a way that's scalable. So the issue here isn't whether or not there is conceivably a battery technology that would allow these things. I think there is a roadmap for batteries to get to this level of efficiency, but that's looking, maybe 5 to 10 years out. The bottom line is that the issue is not that this is a possibility, but the way that it's being represented here is as if it's actually ready to go to market. I want to now talk about the GM partnership agreement to manufacture the Badger in light of this announcement that they made. I just want to play this little quote. This was from this morning. CNBC was interviewing the head of GM, Mary Barra, and Trevor Milton from Nikola. And this is just a little section of that interview.
We're very excited to be partnering with Nikola when we look at the opportunity to continue to leverage our technology, the Ultium battery platform system, as well as the Hydrotech fuel cell technology.
What? So if Nikola has this breakthrough battery technology that they've been promising, and they have all this pathways to build a more efficient hydrogen platform or hydrogen electric platform, why is the partnership with GM using their technology and not Nikola's? Furthermore, why did Nikola have to give GM $2 billion of stock in exchange for getting GM to partner with them? $2 billion, that's like $1 billion more than a gigafactory costs. I'm really curious here where all of this magical technology that Nikola has pioneered, why isn't it showing up in this new model? Why are they leveraging GM's battery and hydrogen fuel cell technology? That is fascinating. So Electrek did a summary of the deal. GM gets a $2 billion equity stake in exchange for certain in-kind contributions. Basically, for building the Badger, Nikola has to surrender $2 billion of stock. General Motors is to be the exclusive supplier of fuel cells globally outside of Europe to Nikola for their not just Badger, but for their trucks, their class 7 and 8 trucks. Wait, if Nikola had all this advanced technology, then why is it that they're surrendering all this equity? And GM, it's actually going to be GM's technology going into the trucks, at least for the hydrogen fuel cells. They also reference their battery technology. Very weird. Now, the reasons I don't think Nikola is a scam, because what's happening is all these other suppliers are basically starting to exert control over Nikola. Nikola is going to end up being basically a shell that is serving the interests of these other manufacturers that have big chunks of ownership and investment in Nikola. So I don't think it's a scam. I literally think this is what is happening, is people are looking at Nikola as their entree into these markets. Nikola doesn't appear to be bringing anything unique to the table. They're essentially a platform that these other auto-related companies are going to leverage to get into battery-based vehicles. And it lets them do it in a way that doesn't cannibalize their existing internal combustion business. It is outside of their primary companies, but they're going to benefit. Now, I want to talk about, arguably you could say that the Badger was sort of an add-on vehicle. So we can take this deal and set it off to the side, except for the fact of this, General Motors to be the exclusive supplier of fuel cells. Now, I want to talk about hydrogen. This is a really, really good video. I will put a link to it in the notes from Everyday Real Engineering. And this just came out a couple of days ago. So I am at 10:59 in the video. You can go watch this whole thing. He goes very patiently through the whole process. And he's actually pro Nikola, I would say, and he's pro hydrogen. But here's what I want to point out. The use case that he makes, and so does Nikola make, for the hydrogen fuel cell advantage has to do with the fact that hydrogen packs so much more energy density than a battery does, which he covers earlier in this video. Again, very informative video. But he explains here why you're sort of fundamentally challenged with hydrogen because of how much energy it takes to first using electrolysis. So this is if you're not going to use it with natural gas, which I think is actually cheaper. But if you're going to be green, the cost to perform electrolysis and to compress it and then to run the hydrogen through a fuel cell reduces it by 65%. So it costs 65% of your electricity just to convert it back into energy on a fuel cell vehicle, as opposed to an electric vehicle where you lose about 15% of the energy going through the various conversion processes that are involved in back from AC to DC, DC to AC. That process takes about 15%. So that means from an energy cost standpoint, the hydrogen is always, if you're using clean processes, is always going to cost about 2.5 times more electricity than just doing a battery electric vehicle. The argument that Nikola is making on why this is advantageous is that it's going to allow diesel fleets to go green, but it's not going to cost them any more on a per mile basis because their technology weighs less than an equivalent battery technology. June 10th of this year. So it's pretty recent. And in this article and in this interview, and I just found this as an example, the total cost of ownership for a Nikola semi is going to be about the same as for a diesel truck or less. They're saying the same or less. I mean, that's a convenient equivocation. So if you use their math, they're saying the direct cost, which is basically fuel, maintenance, and lease payments on the vehicle. They're basically saying, hey, on a per mile basis, the cost of running a Nikola semi is going to be 2 cents per mile less than the cost of running a diesel. Now, if you actually want to look at what it really costs on a per mile basis, you go out here to this is a really well-sourced article. Now, this is from 2018, but they're saying it really costs on a per mile basis $1.82, and they break it up like this: 43 cents for fuel, truck lease 26, blah blah blah. You can see how this all breaks out, but you also need to include the cost of the driver and things like insurance and tolls and other things. So the main point is that the actual cost of trucking is more expensive than just the cost of the vehicle, because you have especially insurance and driver costs. This is Nikola's website, and they do this comparison. So they go through here and they say, here's hydrogen electric, here's 100% battery electric, and here's a diesel cost. Now, what I want to say is the reason why Trevor keeps saying the Nikola is a better deal than the Tesla is because it weighs less. So it's going to weigh less. Now, I want to remind you that prior article we looked at, they said it was going to be 5,000 pounds less than a traditional battery vehicle. So why is it they haven't updated their website to reflect this breakthrough battery technology? Well, probably because, yeah, there's probably some breakthrough that they're going to show, and they might even have a working prototype of it. There's been other working prototypes of other batteries that have this insane range, but there's all kinds of technological hurdles to actually commercialize those because of scaling it up, access to materials, manufacturing processes, all these other things. Let's look at Nikola's own case for how they're defending their vehicle over the Tesla, or even over their own battery electric vehicle. They're saying hydrogen electric, the tractor weight, 18 to 20,000 pounds. And they're saying a battery electric semi is 22 to 24,000 pounds. And we're going to get to this in a second. I'm going to show you how this math works out. And they're saying a conventional tractor trailer, this is just for the cab and chassis, is 17 to 19,000 pounds. So they're actually saying they believe theirs is going to be slightly heavier, but the battery only vehicles are going to be even heavier than that. What they're saying is that weight difference allows the hydrogen vehicle to carry more cargo, and that additional cargo is where the real savings comes in. I think this is a load of hooey when you do the math. But first, before we look at my math, let's go over here and take a look at Ark Invest. So Ark Invest originally, when Nikola came out and they came out with all these promises and all these things that they were saying they could do, Ark essentially challenged Nikola's math, and they came up with their own math in order to try and understand how on earth the Nikola semi can actually compete with the Tesla semi. Here is what they projected. They are showing a slightly higher cost because, of course, you're going to have to actually put the fuel cell in instead of the battery. Now, again, I don't know if this is true, but this is based on what other manufacturers have discovered. It costs more to do a fuel cell and battery together than just a straight battery, even if the battery is larger. So when you look at the fuel cost, you see here the big problem. And again, we looked at that prior slide where it doesn't matter how low you get your energy costs. Here's the thing. Let's say that Nikola says, well, we're going to pay half for electricity than Ark is modeling. Okay, great. That's great. Do you think Tesla is not also going to be able to get their costs as low or lower? Like, do we actually think Nikola is going to have the ability to scale local electric power production cheaper than Tesla is going to be able to scale it? This is the thing. Even if this is high, even if you lower it, you have to lower Tesla's too. And the other thing is they're assuming equivalent maintenance costs, which you have more things to go wrong with a fuel cell vehicle. Now, again, they're mostly solid state. There's not a bunch of moving parts with it. I'm not saying it's significantly higher, but it's not just a battery. I mean, there's more to it than that. I think they're giving an extremely favorable comparison here when because of the fact that they're keeping maintenance costs the same, and they're only saying it's an extra $8,000 for Nikola to produce their vehicle. There's no way they can produce batteries at the same cost as Tesla. And again, this is why I go back to, if they could do this so much better, why is GM getting to dictate it's going to be their battery technology? That tells us there isn't some secret sauce, or at least not something secret right on the immediate horizon. Okay, so I want to show you my math here, because all I did was I normalized for fuel. I basically assumed, hey, I put $1.83 here instead of $1.82, but remember that's 2018 prices, so it probably has gone up some since that company did that study. So basically then I was like, okay, well, Nikola is going to be 2 cents per mile cheaper. I don't know how they're going to do it. Magically, they're just going to do it. I'm going to grant them. I'm going to grant Nikola their thesis that they're arguing. Then I'm going to say, okay, they used a weight of the battery electric semi of 22,000 on the low side and 24,000 pounds on the high side. Okay, so the max weight you're allowed on interstates is 80,000 pounds. So that means if a tractor trailer is averaging 18,000 pounds, the Nikola is 19,000 pounds. And then the high and low Tesla semi weight are 22 and 24,000 pounds respectively. That means that the max cargo is 1,000 pounds lower on the Nikola relative to a typical diesel, 4 to 5,000 pounds. Oops, I had to fix that. Okay. So that means that you can carry 1,000 pounds less on the Nikola and between 4,000 and 6,000 pounds less on the battery vehicle options. Now we know Tesla, according to their launch, said that the Tesla Semi, the fuel cost or the efficiency will be 2 kilowatt hours per mile or less. And then they said that they're going to guarantee a cost per kilowatt hour of 7 cents in the reveal. That means that the fuel cost per mile for a Tesla is going to be 14 cents or less. So we're going to use 14 cents for their per mile fuel cost. At today's national fuel rate, that's 48.4 cents. And again, 14 cents on the Teslas. The cost per mile difference in just fuel, or electricity in Tesla's case, is 34.5 cents. Then we have to add the fact that the tractor trailer, the Tesla Semi at 180,000 is about $60,000 more than sort of the average Class 8 semi tractor trailer. Tesla's going to be about 60,000 more than that. So if you finance that out, it's an extra 60,000. You spread that over 6 years at a 6.5% interest rate, and then you spread that payment out, the monthly payment out, over 12,000 miles per month. You end up with an additional cost of 8 cents. So if you take the $1.83, you subtract out the fuel savings, and then you add back in the additional cost of the Semi, you're at a cost per mile of $1.57 versus $1.83 or $1.81. But now you have a heavier truck, so you're going to carry less cargo. So let's make the worst case assumption for the Tesla Semi and say every load that the diesel truck or the Nikola truck runs, they're going to be loaded to their maximum weight, every single load. So that means that over the course of 14, so in the case of the Nikola, that means that it has to run 61 loads before they have to basically give away a free load to equal the diesel cargo capacity. If you can only carry 58,000 pounds versus the 62,000 pounds of a diesel truck, you're losing 4,000 pounds of cargo every run. So that means for every 14.5 trips you make, you have to do a free trip to equal what a diesel could do in cargo. So with that basically what I did is I converted that into a percentage, and I assigned each truck a weight penalty. The weight penalty normalizes the cost by forcing the more efficient but heavier vehicles to do some extra free trips to equal the cargo capacity. So with the Nikola, that ends up being pretty small, about 1.64%. And then in the lighter Tesla or the lighter BEV truck, that's about a 6.9% weight penalty. And for the heavier one, it's about almost an 11% weight penalty. So then you basically have to go, okay, well, even though it's less per mile, in order to cover the fact that you're carrying less, you have to charge back this weight penalty. So that means that your adjusted cost, meaning it's normalized to what the total cargo delivered by the diesel is. So the point is, even when you're adding for the weight penalty, which Trevor Milton keeps saying is why the Nikola is better, it doesn't make sense. Your cost per mile is still substantially lower than the Nikola. Now, let's say that the Tesla heavy one is actually 30,000 pounds. Now you start getting, so if you're anywhere from say 28,000, that's about as heavy as the battery semi can be and still be comparable to a diesel operating cost or the Nikola operating cost. Again, assuming Nikola can hit all these astonishing efficiencies they're claiming they can hit. So the point is, in order to justify the Nikola business case, here's the assumptions you have to make. You have to make the assumption that every single load the tractor is maxed out. The other thing is you have to assume that your trucks are dedicated to a route. You can't use it anywhere else. You can't be an owner operator that takes other jobs. You can only have that truck slated to one route where there's actually a hydrogen fueling station in order to hit this, this goal. You have to assume that the hydrogen technology will accelerate substantially faster than the battery electric technology. Because if they don't actually close this gap, if we're really looking at 22 to 24,000 pounds, and they can't somehow find a way to get their costs down another 10 or 15% below what anyone says they could do anyway, Tesla's going to keep improving. Their numbers are going to keep improving too. Batteries are going to get more efficient. They're going to get lighter. It's going to cost less. Tesla is the low cost producer. They're going to be the largest scale installer of solar. They're going to be able to drive down their cost faster than anyone else out there. You're assuming that Tesla is going to stand still. They're not going to keep improving at the same pace. And then you're also assuming that the maintenance costs for a BEV truck are going to be equal to the cost of a fuel cell electric truck, which just strikes me as being impossible. I mean, it seems like I don't know what the maintenance issues are with fuel cells, but you're adding components, you're adding a degree of difficulties, more things that can fail. Certainly the maintenance costs for the fuel cell have to be slightly higher than straight battery electric maintenance. There's so many chips that have to fall perfectly in order for the business case that Nikola is making to actually be greater than Tesla's ability to execute on technology that already exists today. It seems impossible. It literally seems impossible. I keep wanting to find a way. I like the idea of hydrogen. It seems like a cool idea to me. I keep trying to figure out, where am I wrong? What are the assumptions that I'm missing about this that are incorrect? And at every critical junction, it seems to point that Nikola doesn't have any secrets magic that's any better than what is already well known out there in the world, which is, we think down the road, we're going to hit 400, 450, 500 kilowatt hours per kilogram. But there's roadmaps. Elon Musk has said, 400 plus kilowatt hours per kilogram at the pack level in 3 to 5 years. I think what Nikola is doing is they're just pretending, they're acting like some technology that is another roadmap that they're going to be able to commercialize that. And so far, the evidence points to the technology is no better than what GM has, which is probably no better than what Tesla has. We'll see, I guess, on battery day. But I don't think Nikola is a scam. I think that they can more or less do a lot of the things generally that they're saying they can do eventually if everything goes the right way. If you've been supportive of Elon through SpaceX and Tesla's early days, and you take with some degree of credibility that these other companies wouldn't have invested all this money into Nikola if they didn't see some potential there, some possibility that this would pay off. I think that's all true. I just think what they saw was that Tesla was going to dominate the world and they needed a pathway to get in BEVs. And this seems as viable as anything else. They don't have a lot to lose. They can use Nikola as a platform to develop their commercialization strategy for BEVs and perhaps hydrogen. But right now, I think what you're going to see is the focus is really going to be on the BEV side and maximizing that. And they're going to sort of dabble in hydrogen like everyone else has and somehow figure out a way to not actually do it. Because if they just can produce batteries and the batteries are, let's say they're 5% worse than Tesla's not going to be able to build enough semis to meet demand. So just like other companies, I think other companies are going to be able maybe not have as high a profit, not have as high margins, not have as good a performance, but because they're available, they're going to make sales. I think Nikola's going to have, I think they're going to have a semi that's being produced that's going to be a battery electric semi that is in the neighborhood of competitive with Tesla, that on a narrow use basis, they're going to find places where it can make financial sense for companies to use them. I just think that the math is so self-evident that if we continue to see progression on the battery side, it doesn't make sense to use hydrogen except for extremely long hauls or like boats or rockets, or there's going to be a case for hydrogen because of its energy density where it makes sense. But I just think until someone proves Elon Musk doesn't know what he's talking about, you have to look at the math, look at what he's saying about hydrogen and go, all right, well, someone needs to prove him wrong. Maybe Nikola does it. Boy, I can't see a way. Okay, that's it for now. Like, subscribe, all the other stuff. Other than that, we'll catch you next time. Bye.